All right, we're rolling.
Beautiful. Welcome back to another freaking awesome episode of the Strongfit Podcast. I think this episode we're going to kind of build up on the last one with the CrossFitters versus runners study that we were talking about, and us developing the protocol for anxiety. And I think the biggest thing is, I had my functions of anxiety, which were tools to be used at a very practical beginner level. This protocol is going to be a little bit more in depth. It reaches more towards the root cause, or part of the root cause, shall we say, of...
it's a different approach because yours is still the root cause, because you're asking people to know themselves, which is still necessary. So you don't get to skip that one either. But the anxiety protocol we're talking about here is going to allow us to go from the other side, which is a more like, it's not structured, but it's more like, the root, like physiological or psychical causing anxiety and how to deal with it. But without your part of, you need to know yourself, you're screwed.
Right. Yeah.
So they still complement each other in that sense.
And I think it's a great approach in the sense that, we always talk about state, systems, and stimulus. The cat's having a good time with that bowl.
1 second. Yeah. Really? What do you want?
What was it, a mouse?
No, there was food stuck to the bowl.
Okay, there.
Persistent.
Yeah, there you go. Yes, she is. It is a hunter. Anyway.
So, talking about states, systems, and stimulus, right? And again, we see a lot of people, we've talked about this for 2 years now, about anxiety being a big driving force of selling within the fitness industry.
Overall, even.
And giving very passive approaches of just namaste, a parasympathetic approach, or drugs.
Yeah, parasympathetic approach or drugs. You get both. Yeah.
Which obviously in the long run doesn't work. And I think this study proves it. And what we're going to be doing will continue to prove so. So the goal would be with the anxiety protocol, and what we're wanting to start is the ability to have coaches and gym owners given the proper tools to show that within the proper training, the proper constraints to training, and understanding the person coming in with certain levels of VLA max, VO2 max, how they should train to better their
and we're gonna go into what the idea is. But to go back to your point, that goes back to what actually we talked about, saying like Stay in Your Line, the Stay in Your Line podcast, when we're saying like, look, coaches have, I guess if you want to be, but we can have a major impact in that aspect, in the mental health fight. I think coaches are the one on the front line, because you see your doctors twice a year, you see us 3 times a week.
Yeah.
And so,
for sure,
is there a way though to organize this so that we can give it to a gym to apply?
Right.
Because that's been not criticism, but that's been something where people talk to us about. I'm like, guys, you guys are very smart, it's great, but how do I do it?
Yeah.
And we don't want to tell what to do, but we do want to give the how to do it.
Right.
So the idea of the anxiety protocol was to give proper guidelines so that we can take it, give it to a gym saying like, those are the constraints, this is what you test, this is how you test, this is where you look. And based on that, those are the type of exercises that will allow you to deal with X, Y, and Z.
Right. Which I think is great, because I think, like we talked in the last podcast about George St. Pierre and talking about the martial artist. And so I was thinking about the coach, right? And I think as a coach, you have like your philosopher, your science guy, you have your stuntman that just wants to be like a cheerleader, athlete kind of guy, right? Yeah. And I'm sure there's more, but like those are like the top 3.
There's a failed athlete somewhere in there.
A burned out. But usually you have like the philosopher that's very passionate, wants to, and I think that's been my approach. A lot of my coaching approach has been that philosophy and, that empathy and being there, right? And, the science is there, but mainly brought by you. But for me, it's like, I know what I'm doing. Yeah. And not like a shaman, but like I'm just going to do things. And this is more going towards that science driven where, hey, these are the numbers that need to be here.
Right. But because, but first of all, there is a helper as a coach. Yeah. There is a category, the helper, or we can call him the wizard or whatever, in the sense of, very, not magic based, but very, like I know this, I understand this. Yeah. I might not be able to put it up, but I understand it. What I want to do with the science and all that stuff that I do, is to be able to have what we know, but break it down so that it can be not in a functional segregation, but like in a roadmap. Yeah. Now, the map is not the place.
Exactly.
That's the problem. That's always the problem, right? But I do believe that if we give a correct roadmap, we can give a better understanding of where they go. And that's why I use all this for, because there's stuff that you know but can't explain because it's so complex.
Right.
Because I client did this at that moment and stuff like that. But there has to be a way for us to at least put a color code on certain big things.
Yeah.
And I think the better we become, the more we can start to put those into categories and go like, okay, this is where we go and everything. And I think we don't want to fall into, the difference between a measurement and a target, obviously.
Right.
But there are categories that people, that we can, again, you can fit in more than one, but it just allows us to move forward, I think, in a little bit of a better way. It's like, I have that problem with the nutrition protocol. An egg, is it fat or is it protein?
Right. Yeah.
Right, so it depends on how. Right, so you always run into those.
Right.
But
it's not binary. As much as we want to make it extremely binary,
exactly.
it's quantum.
Yes. And causation is a very complex thing. But that being said, we can maybe help people move forward. Like if we look at who we have, right, that's the fitness industry where they want to have everybody, or like the science guy that is not science, actually it's institution. Right. It's not science, it's just institution-based.
Memorize the shit.
Exactly. It has nothing to do with science, because science is a way to approach a problem. It's an institution thing. Anyway, but what we have is that we have the philosopher helper. This is really who we have, is people that are really bent on helping others. And they don't, in a way, they don't care how, they just want to help people, which my favorite people, and that's really who we are anyway, right? But, like a white belt has to be shown, like, look, no, not that one. Like if, it's always that exploration, chaos versus order kind of thing. Like this one, like people cannot do what you do.
Right. Well, speaking of staying in your lane, so this is, I've been listening to a lot of podcasts on kind of like the future of economics and mainly because of the cryptocurrency. Let's be real. Fucking Dogecoin, go get some. It's already at 30 cents. But so I was listening, and I forget his name, and I'll have to find it. I'll give it to Alex so you guys can look him up. And he was talking about, how come knowledge isn't rewarded if it's not coming from an institution?
Yes.
And he was talking about his future. And so he's an angel investor and philanthropist, and he was talking about the future of education. He says, we are no longer in these, olden days where you needed to be a Duke or you needed to have somebody that would take you under the wing to go to Harvard. And he's like, now we have the potential that a kid in India and Pakistan should be able to gain the same knowledge as somebody attending Harvard. Why aren't we doing it? And so he's starting this program, and where the future, and we were talking about certifications as a coach and everything, and qualifications and having the knowledge base. And so he's starting this whole program where he broke down, kind of like we broke down those numbers there, the amount of correct problems solved in order for you to get a bachelor's, a master's, and a PhD in whatever field. Yeah. And based on that, he said, why shouldn't you be able to earn money solving these problems? So now what they're doing is going, hey, there's this study. How would you explain it in layman's terms so that a first grader can understand more about their body or more about anxiety? And so what he'll do is he'll say, I'll pay everybody that answers this question in a 10-minute video. I'll pay you 50 euros in cryptocurrency. And then from there, we're going to take it to a panel, and the best one chosen will get $1,000 or $10,000 in cryptocurrency.
I like it. So it can be used.
It'll be used. And so then that'll be knowledge shared. And then what he's doing is he's creating these MPFTs. I don't know if you know what those are. They're like little crypto badges, but they're non-transferable and non-value based. I mean, I can't sell you. Think of like Boy Scouts that get badges.
But it's worth something.
This is worth the fact that you solved this problem. So if you solve enough of these, you'll have these badges. So you go, I have the qualifications because I've solved problems in quantum mechanics or
whatever
in computer science, whatever it is. And I think it's a really cool idea to think about, especially coaching, training. I mean, and any field, right?
Exactly
but you go, hey, I'm not giving you an academical institutional certificate
to memorize,
but you do 100 assessments. I'll give you this little badge on your cryptocurrent wallet, which I think is where things are going to start going more and more. It's kind of like this digital world where you have to kind of show
which makes sense,
the digital assets,
which
right?
makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
with the AI taking over and everything.
Yeah, but that too, but that's another problem. We'll be dead by then, so it doesn't matter.
But so it's a cool way to think about what we're doing here. It's, you know, the amount of work that you're putting in, reading all these studies, and as you're putting them into the vault, you're starting to see how much you've studied and understood and processed and linked together.
And those are the good ones, by the way.
Yeah,
that's not even the other ones.
Yeah,
I'm like,
So staying in your lane really should not be defined by the certification, because I got
the institutions,
I got a message the other day about how to get certified in Strongfit. I was like, well, you can become qualified, and these are like the steps, but you need to put in the
Do you
time.
really want us to be part of that system?
Yeah.
That's the thing I want. Like, if you're one of us, you know I'm an anarchist. Like, why would you want to be part of institutions? We never will.
Yeah.
Like this, we'll fight just by saying anxiety protocol.
Right.
You know, like psychologists will be like, well, how dare you?
Yeah.
Do you even know what you're doing?
Yes,
that's the answer.
Yeah. Yeah, but and it's funny because I see...
Bring it on, by the way. Challenge me on it.
I see these people, and again, we go back to social media and stuff, but you see them doing these passive approaches. Like, they don't really know, but they see it somewhere.
They've read 3 stuff.
You know,
they've read 1 study. And
or they heard it from somebody who heard it from somebody.
Read 1 study.
But I think it's a very powerful statement saying that we're creating an anxiety protocol.
And by the way, you know why I like it too is because if I'm wrong, it won't work.
Yeah.
But then you get to tell me your shit doesn't work. You're wrong.
Right.
That's what I like about it too. Is like at some point you have to go like, look, like we're doing the stuff.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the things that I see on anxiety is something where, you know, it's like the oracles, the old school Greek oracles, where you could never catch them in a lie. Because they would say it in a way where whether it's right or wrong, you could have interpreted it either way, right?
Yeah.
And everybody said that's very slick. I'm like, no, when you fuck with people's health, it's not.
Right.
So they're doing stuff in a way where really if it doesn't work, it's your fault. You didn't apply correctly or whatever. So we're going to have a protocol and say, this is A, this is B, this is how it works. And guess what? If I'm wrong, then we'll know right away.
Yeah, exactly.
But at least I'll learn from it.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure I'm not.
So do you want to go a little bit into the basis of the protocol?
Yes, exactly, right. So we can explain what we're going to offer at least, right? So my idea was, it's open, like honestly, like I want your opinion on this. So my idea was to do a group, right? Because it would be to offer an anxiety protocol for gyms and coaches, going like you have different types of people at your gym. You're going to have some that come toward depression, general anxiety disorder, or anxiety sensitivity issues. We can have a protocol that address all 3 based on gender, men versus women. Oh, I'm going to get in trouble.
Yeah, male versus feminine.
Male energy versus feminine energy, and you can go fuck yourself. So based on gender, and fuck it, based on endurance versus strength in a way, because it relates to lactate level versus VO2 max, right? So that gives you like 4 categories in that sense, right? Yeah. 4 categories of people, so men versus women, strength more versus endurance. Strength can be CrossFit, endurance would be like running, like so long distance, right? Yeah. And based on, so you take that as a matrix versus depression, general anxiety disorder, and anxiety sensitivity. That is itself decomposed in 3 symptoms.
Right.
I know it's complicated. That is the symptom based on physical stuff, cognition, or social. And so if we look at those, depending on where your VLA max is, so your capacity to produce lactate, will have a specific effect on endurance versus strength, men versus women. Yeah. Depression versus anxiety. There's what interests me is that's not just that. So it's VLA max on one side, VO2 max on the other. Your capacity for endurance, which is to bringing oxygen to oxidize everything. But what's very interesting is we also have number relating to your capacity to produce lactate fast, but to recover from lactate production fast. And that recovery from the lactate production back to normal seems to be very important in specific issues, like specific part of the anxiety sensitivity or depression or whatever. Same thing for your ability to recover from a high heart rate back to it. That seems to affect anxiety or depression differently, and differently if you're a woman versus a man, if you come from strength or if you come from endurance. Right. So maybe that's why the shit works sometimes and not others. It's because depending on where you come from, you will have a different reaction based on all of this, and based on the symptoms that you have. And also, when we talk about lactate, there are two ways to create lactate. You can create through physical exercise, or you can create it through mental stress, which means a fight with someone will bust all your lactate levels. On a study that we did, we saw that the people, and so 5-10 minutes before the test itself, were having elevated levels of lactate. Not all of them, but some. And that relates to more stuff after, which is very interesting. And by the time they did the test, the levels that went down, then went back up as they did the test. So that means that their mental stress before a simple test was equal to a certain amount of work on the treadmill.
Right. Yeah.
How interesting is that? And that's on the lactate. And so your capacity to recover from that...
It's the free energy principle.
yeah. Isn't that funny? But that means that your capacity to recover from the physical lactate, but versus the mental lactate, it's the same lactate, but you get the idea.
Yeah.
Will change your levels of anxiety versus depression and everything. And so there's a way to chart this. That we're creating.
The lactate is high before exercise. It's usually people that are higher towards.
So we looked, and then actually the anxiety sensitivity to our social symptoms was high. So it's being judged.
Right.
Because they know they were about to be tested.
Right.
So then we go back to the stuff with, awareness that I was telling you about. Yeah. So is they going like they're going to have to perform.
Yeah.
Because they're being tested.
Right.
And that elevated their levels right away, because right away they go toward that excitatory phase, toward like, I need to be at my best. That means awareness, and that's basic stuff of anxiety is that, I need to be aware. That will drive your system up the most. It's because that excitatory, whether you go on neurotransmitter like glutamate, whether you go toward the beta 1, 2, or 3 brainwaves, however you look at it, that's the thing that drives you there. And that's going to be a major component of anxiety. On depression, that's why people go, don't care. They don't give a shit.
Yeah.
Even being tested, they go, I don't care. Because they can't get that excitatory levels going.
Right.
So they're stuck in a very inhibitory function, which you see that on the brainwaves, you see that on the neurotransmitter. Like it's really, that's how the whole stuff works.
Right.
And so is it complex? Well, obviously, just by giving you a simple matrix, you see how it gets so complex so fast, right?
Yeah.
But we have the tool at least to define that simple matrix. Well, it is simple.
As simple as it can be,
exactly. Not simpler than that, though.
Yeah.
As simple as it can be, but no simpler than that. At least that matrix will give you a roadmap toward your clients.
Yeah.
So what would interest me, and again, that I'll ask your opinion on this, is to have a group like, because we have the mentoring program, which is usually we have people that are there for themselves.
Right.
But a lot of time is gym owners and main coaches. Mm-hmm. What I would like to have is to have a bunch of gyms with us that implement that anxiety protocol in their gyms. All they would need is a lactate tester and a whoop band for the VO2 max, and then a few psychological tests, and off we go.
Right. It's a cool. I think with what's happening in the world today and everything, I think it's a kick-ass. I'm in my head, I'm already seeing how the intake of clients would be different.
Yeah, exactly.
Which would be super cool, right?
Yep.
I mean, especially if you're more towards the science-driven, and especially when you start talking about performance, because anxiety plays such a huge role on performance.
And depression, you cannot tell me. Yeah.
Right. So that's where we can really start to make a big difference. Whether it's somebody walking in off the streets, whether it's somebody that is coming from a major sport or finance world or stressful jobs, like this will be an amazing intake that can be applicable for the symptoms of anxiety, for depression, and towards performance on the field or in the workplace.
If you have a good athlete coming in, that means that they crashed at the local college or semi-pro league that they were going into. Otherwise, they wouldn't come to you.
Yeah.
If they come to you as a gym, unless you have high school athletes or stuff like that, but that means that they crash on the other system. So they're coming to you either hurt or already beat up. Right. So we need to map this.
Yeah.
Right. So it's the same thing as the assessment we do, like history of athletic versus history of injuries. You need to know the person. So now we could further the assessment.
Right.
During an assessment, we take the levels of lactate at rest. Do you feel judged? Are you comfortable? Do you like the gym?
Right.
Like stuff like that would tell you right away where the person is, the type of reaction that they have, which directs the type of workout that will work better based on this, which How are we not doing that is more the question.
Well,
we are, but
I think
in a non-structured way. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But I think it's the constraints based on their training, right? I think is the biggest thing where I think we've gone south and we've stopped setting the proper constraints to training, I think, in most fitness.
Yeah, because it's all the same shit. Let's do, we're going to build some muscle, then we're going to do some steady cardio. And some numbers were showing there that for some people, steady cardio welcome to depression. Yeah. Right. Because it just allow them to inhibit instead of go toward excitatory. Yeah, so there's stuff like that where like that, I think bodybuilding has killed the fitness industry on this. Because, we're supposed to look a certain way, we're supposed to train a certain way. You do incline and then decline and then you do flies and then you go on the treadmill for an hour and then that's what you're supposed to look like and be like, even though performance-wise, it does shit.
Right. Well, when we're talking about the social anxiety and the validation.
That too.
And the major players in this role are those that are on probably, I don't want to say all of them, but most of them are mentally unstable.
Yeah.
They develop compulsory behaviors.
They have fixes left and right, if not on drugs.
Yeah, and I think especially now being fueled by social media where they need to be on season, where they see people that are on season. I mean, like I've seen these influencers, they literally show up with 15 pairs of bikinis and this and that, and they take pictures one after the other. They never enjoyed the fucking pool. Even the DJ was amazing and the drinks were good, and they leave. And you're like, did you even enjoy this? And no, they just took pictures.
They have the next 2 weeks done of,
And then they either go completely off season or they're the ones trying to become the influencers and they become with these fixes, right?
So they're fucking nuts because we know a few. Well, which I would go nuts as well. Can you imagine being judged like this all day with the comments that they get and the messages and then that is not a life I would want for anybody.
So I mean that's I think allowing and taking a stand and changing the measurement of success, not to be that of being aesthetic or trying to
you
have
still
validation.
Can, you still can. Yeah.
Right. I'm not saying you can't, but looking for the validation through the aesthetics versus the mental health.
Because what we saw is that also in that study was very interesting is the validation seems to play such an important role because like it was very simple. It's like when you go into a gym that has a certain culture, it's about if you suck at that culture, at that validation is where the anxiety goes up.
Right.
Like the runners, if they cannot maintain a straight face and run and grind, anxiety goes up. The CrossFitters, if they can't push, anxiety goes up. Like it's the validation of the culture of the gym you're into. So on the athlete, on the person side that tells you what, you better choose your gym correctly.
Right. Yeah.
And then on a gym owner side, it's like, who do you have?
Right.
Will actually matters a lot. Do you have, like a lot of gyms, they have that class at noon, which is the office workers that come to train for that 12 o'clock. All right, so those office workers are the executives side. Usually executives like endurance more.
Right.
They have that grind stuff. They usually take the same kind of drugs, which is like stay in the center kind of stuff. So that would tell you that they are looking for a specific validation of not looking like they're dying in a workout. That's probably why they all puff out their chest because they need to show that they can grind without showing. And I've seen so many of those. How many men executive type did you see that where they cannot show anything?
Yeah.
And then you break them down, but you have to go at wave to break them down because in their world, the validation is not showing that.
Right.
It's not breaking down. It's to be able to go hours without breaking down. Right. Even though you do shit work, it's not the point because that's what they do in the gym. They do shit work. Okay, Kitty.
He's like, I want water.
Yeah. I'm the Bond villain.
Yeah.
He's James Bond. I'm the Bond villain. You see that they do shit work in the gym.
Yeah.
Like they do reps. The reps are shit. They don't feel the muscle, doesn't matter. They're grinding it. Yeah. And that's endurance. What do they all do? They all pace the shit out of it. They can't do burn the question. They can't break down when you make them do the stuff. You have to go at them. But then imagine the lack of validation that they get out of your workouts.
Right.
Because they go, well, why would you make me go there when my entire world tells me that this is bad and I'm supposed to go the other way?
Want to be,
I guess.
She wants cuddles. Yeah, but so looking at it from that side and then looking at it from a coach's perspective where you're like, you started and you weren't clear enough on the culture you wanted, and the people coming in will dictate that culture based on the validation.
I agree.
And so then you start to have these gyms where they're like, this is not what I wanted.
Exactly.
And now you can't change it.
And now you burn out.
Yeah.
Right. But that brings the question too, is that means that do we need to have a workout that tends more toward endurance or tends more toward, based on the demographic of people that we get?
Right.
Well, it's like a restaurant. Like look at French food in the US. It's not French food because Americans don't want French food. Americans want American food that looks like French food.
With French accents on top of it.
Exactly. But it's not French food. When I got there, I was like, it's like the Chinese food in the US. It's not Chinese food.
Right.
It's just American Chinese food. But as you say, you're going to face that issue if you go with your gym. But now, with this done correctly, there's a way to do it. It just means, for example, that you have to introduce some strength, but you have to be careful on how you do it.
Yeah.
Like, for example, a sled sprint to a max level, all out one set, is not the same as that sprint EMOM that we do.
Right.
They're both sled sprints, but the approach is different because one is to recover from the lactate production, the other one is to spike and then be done. Some people can spike, or they'll need to learn to recover from the spike. Otherwise, you're going to give them massive anxiety, which is what we see.
Yeah.
So on that client, do you use the one set all, or do you use the EMOM? Well, that's what we want to when we work on. So you can still do that with your endurance people, but based on whether they come from the validation of their culture will define whether you use the EMOM or you use the one set all. Yeah. That's what interests me with this. But you know what interests me is like exactly what you talk about. How many coaches did we have that burn out of their gym not being what they want anymore?
Right.
The demography being like, dude, that's not what I want. Yeah. Right? We have a lot of them. If we do this correctly, they'll be able to do what they want, but still with the result they're looking for their clients.
Right.
So I think that could help coaches a lot.
You know, when we were talking about the aesthetic part, the aesthetics are a byproduct, right?
Yep.
So, which has to do a lot with this, because it's still going to force you to train. It's just you're training in a smarter way.
But plus, by the way, if you're happy with your training because you feel better, you come back.
Yeah, and you're more present, and you're not just...
exactly. And then you don't have the water retention, which means you're leaner and all that stuff. But like, I was thinking about that the other day. Is like, maybe at the end that we refuse to see, even when we talk about performance, what we want is we train to feel better.
Yeah.
At the end, so that's why you go toward a certain type of training, certain type of sport, because we all train to feel better, whether it's about the way we look or about the way we feel, but to come back every day to the gym, you better fucking like what you do. It has to give you, I think progress at some point, if you just look at it in numbers and everything, always leads you to the same place.
Yeah.
Like it's just not that. I mean, it has to be like, how do I feel? Do I make progress mentally? Am I learning? Stuff like that. And that comes out of not going against, for example, your validation culture, because that matters a lot.
Yeah.
And so that's where the coach athlete stuff they have to be on the same page.
Yeah. 100%.
And that's really the protocol I want to create on that, is that, and by the way, it's for both sides.
Yeah.
Is the athlete has a certain validation, but then the coach has to understand also that, because God knows I made that mistake of, with the burner questions, and some people just crashing every time. I'm like, just push harder, but they can't.
But they can't, yeah.
Because then they go, the gym is what, 4 hours a week?
Yeah.
Their validation culture is 8 hours a day.
Yeah.
Right. That culture where they are and everything. And so I take them and then once a week I push them in a place where their 8 hours, 10 hours a day, 12 hours a day is telling them is the wrong place to be. That's a hard fight that I might not win.
It's going to take some time. Yeah.
I did not win all of them.
Yeah.
But now I'm starting to go like, because maybe in a way what I did is I accentuated some type of anxiety because of the clash of validation within my training session and their culture. So the culture of my session versus the culture of their world is not the same. Ooh, that's a rough one.
Right.
So maybe there's also a smarter way on my side to approach that workouts, because I want them to learn to push, but there are many ways to, I'm not going to say skin a cat, because I love that one too much. But that's a little bit for me the goal of the protocol in that sense. I mean, also.
Yeah, right. It allows you to add, I remember like 2-3 years ago, you talk about the coach having certain lenses and certain people, right?
Exactly.
So I think this allows you to add a couple lenses in how to deal with those tougher on the verge of these are not my clients, but now you can understand where they're coming from and how to better adhere to them and deal with them and work with them, right? Which I think for me as a coach is like, I want to be able to work, I would say with almost everyone. There's still some personalities where I'm just like, not my thing.
You're more empathetic than I am.
Yeah, but if I understand where you're coming from better, then we can have a middle ground, right? Because it's always that. Like if we can sit down and have a conversation, for the most part, we're going to get along with almost everything we're going to
We'll find places where we get along.
And there might be some discussions, but this allows me to be like, all right, well, you're at least in the fitness world. Let's not talk about other parts of the world, but in the fitness world and you're coming to train with me, I can be like, all right, so you get stressed out because of this. And so now we just need to change or tweak your training a little bit so that you can have better mental stability. And I think that as a whole, even if you weren't the personality I wanted to be coaching per se, we can still give the right protocol. They could change. Maybe you're feeling that way because of insecurity, because of validation, or whatever it may be. It's usually
I look at it, it's when people saying, I want this.
Yeah.
And now I know, I'm like, no, you don't. You do, but not in the form that you think you do. Right. You think you want to squat, No, what you want to do is a heavy imam squat.
Yeah.
That will give you the validation you're looking for versus that number that you think you're chasing because you saw on Instagram, but actually that's not the validation you're looking for. Stuff like that. That I want versus I need, that is so hard to deal with, right? And also, like I know coaches will go, well, what about in a group setting? Well, most of the time, the group that you have, if they come at a certain time, that means they come from the same culture a lot of times. Like, 10 o'clock are soccer moms.
Right.
Your 5 o'clock are office living. Usually 80% of the class comes out more or less the same culture.
Right.
Or it'd be interesting to be able to group people when you want to do semi-privates, to group people with the same goal. Well, that could give us that.
That could be a big one, yeah, for sure.
For the semi-private, at least for the small groups or big groups, if they come from the same, they're all on the endurance style, then we know what to do. Or we can do like you want a strength sessions, you maxing out, you're doing an imam.
Right.
Stuff like that. I mean, I think it would allow us to decompose the programming in a much more precise way.
Yeah. I'm excited.
That's the way I look at it. Yeah, me too.
A good one.
And for me, it's the removing my own biases.
Right.
This will help me. Like, you want to get stronger. Okay, so your carries and then squat, because that's what I did. But maybe you need a squat imam versus a max squat. So we're still going to squat heavy.
I'm more towards like the feminine side. In that aspect, like I love imams.
Yes,
I could do imams all day.
But I've noticed like when I do on the VO2 max, it helps me mentally.
Right.
On the strength, it doesn't. Because I'm like, fuck this. Like, I want the maximum fight.
Right.
Because it's like, it has nothing to do with performance. It's me against the world. It's Sisyphus. I mean, like, I'm going to take that stone and I'm going to put it up the hill and I'll do it tomorrow morning.
Right.
I don't mind, but I'm not losing this. Whereas my problem was the VO2 maximum and my heart rate spikes coming back from it.
Right.
That's where my weakness is. And that's why the steady cardio I couldn't do, because it's keeping my heart rate high. And I fucking hate that. So I was like, all right, so what I did the other day, I was doing an imam every 2 minutes. First minute is 15 seconds, literally as hard as I could, 105 on the bike. Then the next 45 seconds, stay on the bike at 55, 60. Then take a minute off and do it again. And that, mentally, I came out of it going like, oh, I feel awesome.
Right.
Because of that. Yeah. Because I targeted, you know what my stuff is? It's anxiety sensitivity toward cognition. Okay. If I can't think straight, I fucking hate it. So when I go at like that 160 plus, my heart rate starts to pump. I start to lose a specific focus because I start to become unfocused because I'm freaking out. That's what stresses me out the most. So it's taking that under control. So either I spike and then come back and stay there, or I just do almost freak out for like 20, 30 minutes. And that's what has helped me the most mentally.
Interesting.
Yeah, right. But that's based on that.
Right.
So it's to learn to fight a very specific VO2 max recovery for me.
Right.
That's my training. If I do that, mentally I'm in a good place and I feel like going to do stuff. If I don't do that, anxiety goes up. I just want to do what I know.
Right.
Because I go back in my shell and like I just want to do what I know.
Simple,
and I don't want to go outside.
Right.
for me, but right now I'm doing it. I'm like, I want to lift heavy again. I want to do this. I want to do this. I want to experiment. Whenever I go more to exploration, I know I'm in a good place.
Yeah.
Whenever I don't control that VO2 max recovery, I become exploitation based.
Okay.
I become reactive.
Right.
Because I can't relax. And so like my sleep is good right now. Like everything mentally, I'm so much better. So I did a sprint session with Rick and with Jenna on Saturday, and she beat the shit out of us, an hour and a half. But it was very technical and everything. And I'm like, and I left, I was like, I'm fine. I didn't even feel sore on Sunday. I felt sore on yesterday, just to give you how bad it was, right? My both feet, like my right glute, anyway. But I didn't feel it mentally.
Right.
Not stress. I'm like, I'm going to do it again. I was beat to shit physically, obviously, but I didn't feel it. Because my anxiety is so much lower because I can recover my heart rate. So it's not lactate based for me. It's VO2 max recovery. Yeah. And that's because of anxiety sensitivity based on cognition. Yeah. And so I've been playing with this and I'll be like, well, let's see me, because that's the best way to do stuff. Like I took me and I was like, all right, let's see if I'm right or not, and on the target. Right. Yeah. That's why on the calls on the active breath, I had two where I was like, try this.
Yeah.
And it worked right away. Because I was going off of that, going like, that's the type of anxiety I can tell.
That you can tell, yeah.
Yeah, I can tell where they are. Yeah, well, because I talked to her before.
Yeah.
And I was like, try this. Because I could tell that the problem was like that no finish line was killing them. Like, go do that. And then you have no choice but to do it. That forced thing. Yeah, they were just shutting up. So there was a fight there, but like a forced fight that just, no. So I was like, all right, do one. So that's work really well is the quit plus one.
Yeah.
It's like you do that, and then whenever you want to quit, so it's a quit minus one, quit plus one as a matrix, right? If you're going to want to quit at 8, you do 7, but then you keep going until you want to quit and you do plus one set.
Yeah.
And that works. It's the same thing as me doing my steady cardio.
Yeah, that's what I was doing. Remember, I was doing the squats back in Utrecht when we were doing the neoprene stuff, and I was like, for whatever reason, that 4th rep is my quit rep.
Right.
Like 4, I hate getting to 5, but if I can get past 4, then I can kind of keep going and building on it.
Yeah.
So it's.
But also you can either do 3 forever.
Yeah.
Or like, so depending on how we go, or one set.
Where you go.
But you have to go all out.
Yeah.
But because if I keep making you do 5 and you just hit that 4 sooner or later.
That 4 becomes a 5, right?
Right. And plus like you feel like you're stuck. Because no matter what, you're going to have to go past 4, past 4, past 4. And there's no end in sight. Right. And that just ruins you. Crazy, So it's different there. But if I can make you do 3s all day, but then performance-wise, I can still make you strong with 3s. Yeah. You just can't do 2-4, whatever. Means that will change, I'm sure. But right now, it's at 160 heart rate on stuff. Like I feel my heart rate pumping harder. Like the heart starts to go, not faster, just harder.
More powerful,
yeah. And that blood pressure, like right away, I hear the words, I want to quit in my head. Like on the target. I was playing with in Rio on the elliptical machine, looking at the heart rate. Yeah. And I was going up 160, feeling it 155, 160. I did that for fucking 20 minutes. I could tell you exactly, and I could hear the words going in my head. It was fascinating. Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah. But so if I stay 155, I was like,
you're fine.
And then mentally I was great because I didn't quit. So I went 20 minutes, I need 25. I got out and I was like, yeah.
Is the goal going to be going above that 160? So basically developing a higher threshold?
Yes, exactly. Yeah, the key is the threshold.
Right.
Is that. But like the level of focus required for me to stay at 155 was big. So I can do 20, I can't go past that. So I'm going to try to take it probably to 30, not past that. And after that, see if I can push that threshold a bit. Okay. But never going to the threshold.
Right.
Never. Like and playing with that. But what works on the other side also is I go past the threshold and then coming back. But it's the coming back.
Right.
I know I can go past. I have just never, because I kill myself enough on the fucking harness to know that I can go past that. So that I've done. It's coming back from it.
Yeah.
I remember the amounts we were doing. Not the amounts, but the training we were doing. It's like we used to do that crazy training where we just drag the sled, and then I go, he goes, and then we did like 6 sets, and that had to be the worst thing ever. Like after those sessions, like might as well die now. Yeah. Those were horrible.
Yeah, those were rough.
Those were rough. Yeah, but there's something about that 6 set, because it's that, at 3, you can't. The fight is different. You keep doing it, but mentally you just lower a bit because but you don't quit. You just so you don't go to that spot. You just let's keep the fight right below the freak out and just keep going.
Keep going out
to build that capacity to come back.
Yeah.
That's why we work on the sled.
Yeah,
naturally.
Well, we're doing I do like the songs where you sprint as hard as you can, and then you bring yourself back the remainder of the song. Sprint the song, like that. That stuff works really well.
Yeah, same idea that I do on the other end. It's exactly that. I like the song better than the seconds, by the way.
Because it makes it easier. Like
it's less data driven. I like it because you don't get crazy. I think I like the song better.
We were doing something on the assault bike there, and I was trying to look at but then you're focusing on that, which changes the whole operation.
Changes the whole mindset completely. Yeah, no, it does. So that's why I like the idea of the song better. But that's something we could do too. Is we could give them those workouts with the song. Yeah, exactly. After that, they make up whatever they want. But if it's raising VO2 max, there's plenty of ways to do this. But what are you raising the VO2 max for?
Right.
Because for most people, it's like, well, because that's what you do.
That's what you do for health.
Right? It's like, but the study was showing that for some people, it's actually the depression just shoots up like crazy because they're probably already there. They probably have a good VO2 max.
Right, which means that it could be, I understand training is healthier than not training.
Yep.
But if you're training incorrectly, you could be feeding the demons in the worst kind of way.
But we saw that with runners.
Yeah.
We saw the runners that are, especially on the women's side, so fucking anxious.
Yeah.
Like they're feeding that. And I think there's a very dark side to that where there's two sides to produce a lactate. And we saw that to feel better, you need certain lactate levels because it's a fuel. But there's two ways of producing lactate. You can either have a physical fight or you can have a mental fight. And the runners that are only focused on VO2 max, which means that they only focus on getting their heart rate under control. How do you produce lactate then if you don't do it through a fight, a physical fight? You do it through a mental fight. Yeah. So I still believe that you'll see people creating negative space in their life as a mental fight that they need to raise the lactate levels. The body will find a way to do that.
To make it happen,
Yeah, to feel better.
Right.
The system will do whatever it has to feel better. And I do believe that there is a dark side to it where people will create fight within their family or whatever just so that they create what they need for the training. Because those are the constraints you set.
Right.
Like some powerlifters that would just create fights at home so they could squat harder. Or Captain Kirk said it straight up. He would do it on purpose.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I believe I see that with runners that have like very unhealthy situations because he helps them run.
Right. Yeah.
And I think it's lactate based.
Wrong type of fuel, but hey.
Not a good idea. That does not sound like a good idea, but I do believe I've seen it happen time and time again. Yeah. And of course, like if you change, you'll do better when you're in a good place.
Yeah,
for
sure.
But if you wrong validation, wrong training, then you'll be in the wrong place. Yeah.
I like it. Well, we'll call it there.
Yep.
So check it out, guys. So we have the Anxiety Explained starting in May 15th?
No, May 7th.
May 7th. So early.
That'll be
I don't know if this will be out before that, but if it's not, then there'll be a self-guided course for you guys.
Yeah.
And then we have in June, we'll start the protocol for the gym. So if you're interested,
the anxiety protocol.
Head over to Mighty Networks and
we'll explain everything there, but you'll be on the mentoring program.
Oh, like, share, subscribe, comment, tag, flag, all that good stuff. Just do it all, All right, guys, have a good one. We'll see you guys in the next episode.